Hey, it's me, AP, aka Mr. Movie Cheer, and welcome back to another edition of Quick Topics, a show where I discuss different types of physical media, movies, and movie-related topics. And today on the show, as always, I've got 6 different topics to get into, so let's get to them, ladies and gents. The first topic I am going to discuss today is a topic from the Movie Cheer Town community. So this time around, I've actually put out a post recently on the community tab on YouTube, which is great. I love having that interaction with other people in the community, in the movie collecting community, just movie fan community like myself. And we had a few different people got in contact and thrown a few questions for this episode, which is awesome. So I just want to say a big thank you to those people in advance as well. But let's get to it. First topic is a topic by Philip Coghill. Philip has been on the channel a few times. He's an awesome guy. And Phil, he's got a really cool YouTube channel as well. Phil has brought up the topic, will video game movies be the next big trend in cinema? He also had a bit of a follow-up as well with this, Phil. So let's go. I've got the phone out here, got the questions all ready. I'm all prepped. I'm prepped for this episode. Phil said, I think, so I said, yeah, great topic, Phil. I said, especially with the success of Mario and the Last of Us TV show recently, that's, I think, it's going to be the next big trend potentially. And he said, yeah, I think so. The popularity of superhero movies are starting to wane a bit. So it's very likely that another genre will come in and steal its thunder within the next decade. And since, like you say, Mario and The Last of Us were very successful, it shows that there is a big market for video game adaptations, and I think there's a very good chance that they will be. Great follow-up by Phil as well, there. Awesome, Phil. Will video game movies be the next big trend in Hollywood? That's an awesome question and an awesome topic, because I think for years, for decades even, they tried to really crack that nugget of video game adaptions. And there's been absolutely tons over the years. You think even back to like the 90s, the Mortal Kombat's, the original live-action Mario movie, the Assassin's Creeds. There's tons of them, isn't there? Tons of different adaptions. And why have they only kind of just started getting success now with the Sonic, the Mario, the Last of Us, Detective Pikachu? Why have they only just started getting success now? Why have they only just started like churning out really decent movies, decent adaptions? Whereas for years we've had like duds, really. I mean, I'm sure there's been some gems around there, but like Hitman, that series, one of them was okay, but are they amazing movies? Are they box office hits? No. But I do think they are going to be like, it does feel like the superhero genre is definitely waning. I think superhero movies will always be big money movies, no matter what it is. I think, especially if it's an Avengers movie, I think certain ones will always kind of bring in the money. I think sometimes, like, you kind of like your Blue Beetles, them sort of ones don't do as well. But I think if it's like a Captain America or an Iron Man, a Spider-Man, I think their movies are always generally going to take on money and make money. I mean, that may wane over like another decade. 10 years is a long time for movie genres to change, and sure, they could definitely change over that time. But video game movies, I think it's just like it's kind of like books, Books for years have been adapted into movies, into TV shows, and they do well. You had like Harry Potter's, your Lord of the Rings, and equally at the same, other side of the spectrum, there is other ones that don't do as well. I think it just depends, but I think video games is hugely popular. It's got hugely popular fan base, video games. I think there's definitely the audience there. If they love a certain franchise enough, they would go and see it. They would go and see the movie adaptation. But then you think that would be the same with ones like The Last of Us and like the Assassin's Creed, the Prince of Persia. But maybe it's kind of like times are changing, and where it's just something that happens over time, and people then start to gravitate to a certain genre more. And I think maybe if the Mario movies and stuff I think if they start like Legend of Zelda is a good one, because that is now been announced just this past week that they're going to do a live action Legend of Zelda. Will that translate to a movie adaptation to a movie adaptation. It's such a hugely popular, it's got a massive fan base, kind of like Mario. I'd say Link, Legend of Zelda, is just behind Mario as a video game property for Nintendo. Will it do as well at the cinema? Will that be a big box office movie? That is, it's going to be interesting to see. I do think, though, video game movies are definitely one where we're going to see more and more of them over the next decade. I think they are going to be a more successful trend. I want to see more Pokemon movies, if I'm being honest. I really would love to see that. I think that'd be ace to say. I thought Detective Pikachu was awesome. The Sonic movies are good. The Mario movie, I'm looking forward to whatever comes of that, whether it's sequels or whatever. Yeah, I really do think they're going to be bigger and bigger. Whether they kind of outdo superhero movies, that'll be, time will tell. I think box office wise, they could do it. You know, if you look over a 10-year period, they could potentially do it if they have a good run of superhero movies. But it's like with everything comes and goes, isn't it? It's like trends in fashion. Superhero movies, they come and go. It's like the westerns of the past, they come and go. Will it be the next trend? I think this definite answer from me is I think video game movies are just going to get more successful, make more and more money over the next few years, and I think we are going to see more and more adaptations, because we're seeing it on the TV show side of things. Halo, Fallout, a few more of them there. I think we're getting more and more of them, and I think, you know, the more they pump out, there's going to be more successes in there as well. But great question from Philip in the community. Check out Phil's channel as well. So next up, I want to discuss I Am Legend. I Am Legend 2. More to the point. Basically, I Am Legend was released in 2007, starring Will Smith. I don't know if this is like a topic I went over on a podcast or something recently, but basically, I want to talk about this. They've kind of announced that they're in pre-production for I Am Legend 2. Spoilers for that movie, for the end of that movie. So the end of this cinematic and DVD release of that movie, Will Smith's character dies. So this is like an apocalypse. There's a virus that takes over the world, and then there's like these sort of like zombie characters. And at the end of the movie, he's trapped in this basement, and all of them come at him, and then he sacrifices himself to save some other people. And I rewatched this, and I remember watching it years ago, not thinking much of it. I watched it again. I thought it was a decent movie. I don't think it was amazing. I don't think it was like a 5-star movie, but I thought it was a decent film. I'm having that sort of like marathon of Will Smith movies recently, so I'm going through all the Will Smith catalogue. But now they kind of announced they're going to do a sequel in the next few years with Will Smith return. But how does he return if his character died in the end of that movie, sacrificing himself? Well, I'll tell you why. Because on the DVD, when it was released, there was an alternative ending. And the alternative ending was he basically comes out, he survives, basically. And they find out they've secured the ingredients he's like this scientist guy to cure the world of this virus. So they're going to do a sequel based off the alternative ending, not the ending that was on the cinematic release. Now, I think that's a really weird one to do, because a lot of people would remember that movie with that ending, not have seen that other ending. So it's going to be interesting the way, if this does come to be and they do make the sequel eventually, how do they work around it? I suppose they could just do it sort of like, at the beginning of the movie, they say, like, Will Smith has, like, a flashback, and he sort of, like, remembers it. Like, in his mind, he felt like he killed himself, but in the reality was the alternative cut or something, and it shows something like that. Maybe they do it, like, some sort of weird thing where he's, like, having a breakdown of some sort, and that's where, in his mind, he always felt like in his mind that he destroyed himself, he sacrificed himself or something like that. Maybe they work it around. They're going to do some movie magic, or maybe they'll just do it like based on the fact they think people would have seen the alternative cut and that's the end, and they're just going off and they're just going from there. I do think it is a bit of an odd sequel to do out of like... Do you know, I think about Men in Black, a lot of like the Will Smith movies that I really enjoy, Men in Black. I would love to see a Men in Black 4 with Will Smith. I think that would be great to see. That would be more of what I'd want to see. I think I'd rather see like an iRobot sequel, if I'm being honest. I think a sequel to that would be more interesting than I Am Legend. That's just me personally, but I do think it's a weird one to do a sequel to. Give me either a like a Men in Black sequel or a brand new Will Smith movie. A brand new action sci-fi movie that is good from Will Smith. That's what I'd rather see than I Am Legend 2. But yeah, I do think it's a bit odd doing a sequel based off a DVD alternative cut. A really weird one. But yeah, let me know how would you work? How would you do that? Like do the sequel with that? It's an interesting one. Should the original Star Wars trilogy be rebooted? The kick-ass director and Kingsman writer Matthew Vaughn, he come out recently and said he would love to do a reboot of the original trilogy. The characters Han, Leia, Luke, Chewie, all them characters, reboot them as his version of Star Wars. And apparently he must have pitched it to Disney and they turned him down. But it's an interesting one. Would a reboot work? Could they do it as well as the universe they've got going now? You know, reboot them characters, new actors playing them roles. You know, it's been talked about for years, like the guy who plays the Winter Soldier, him potentially playing a young version of Luke. And I'd be honest with you, he does look a bit like him. But should they do it? They recast Solo, the actor, with that Alden Ehrenreich for the Solo movie. That didn't do that well, but I actually thought he was really good as Solo, as Han Solo. I thought the guy who played Donald Glover, I think he was great as is it Donald Glover? Am I thinking, is it right? Maybe I've got it wrong. Hang on. Yeah, I don't know. The guy who played Lando anyway. I thought he was great as Lando. And would a reboot work? Like recasting all their movies? I would be up for that if they told more stories as well. You know, they have to keep it. It can't affect the original trilogy, for one, and for me as well, it can't affect anything they're doing with like the Mandalorian, Ahsoka, all that sort of thing. It would have to be somewhat separate, and I think, I mean, could they do it? Because they're obviously doing the deep faking technology with Luke, with Mark Hamill returning as a young version of Luke. Could they have two different versions of Luke Skywalker going in a movie universe? I think it would be a bit confusing, personally, for movie fans. Let's just say that right now. But say if they give it like 5-10 years down the line, and then they do a reboot, I would be definitely up for that. I think I would be up for it. I think I'd be interested to see just alternative stories, just different adventures of those Star Wars characters. I think it'd be fun to see. I think it would be a big draw for fans, because everyone loves them original characters, even though they'd be played by different actors. I think it'd be fun to see, you know, having that sort of tie to the past. It's obviously going to pull in your OG trilogy fans, and people who didn't really like the sequels or the prequels. I think it's going to be, that would be something really clever. And yeah, I think it would work if they had a bit of a distance between what they're doing now. I think what they're doing now is really good with the Mandoverse and all this. I think separate it, do it maybe 10 years down the line, then do a reboot. I think it's inevitable. I think with the likes of classic characters like Indiana Jones, I think it's inevitable they're going to do a reboot of Indiana Jones at some point, because it's such a popular franchise, and it would be daft not to reboot it with a new, younger cast, to tell more stories of them characters that people love at that moment in time when they were at a certain age, them characters as well. So yeah, I think it would be great to see. I'd be down for that. I would. And I think Matthew Vaughn is really good. I think he did the X-Men First Class, or he's involved with that as well. He's a really good writer, director, I'd definitely be down for a Star Wars reboot of the OG trilogy characters. Not the OG trilogy. I don't want to see remakes. I want to see more stories with them characters. That's the very most important thing here. New stories. Next up, we have a topic from Shaun, aka Media Collector Madness in the community. Shaun's a great guy. He's been on the channel before, and he's got an awesome channel as well. Check out his channel, Media Collector Madness. Shaun has thrown out the question here: will streaming go into a decline after raising prices again? So apparently, one of the main streamers recently, I can't remember which one it was. It might have been Apple, maybe. They've upped the prices, and this is a thing that happens all the time. You know, one raises the price and another one does. Shaun also had a follow-up here. He said, I think more will go to physical media eventually. Streaming services will price themselves out. First of all, great topic from Shaun. Will they go into a decline? I think what will happen. So I think what will happen forevermore, as years go by, They will get more and more higher with inflation. It's what happens. We've seen it before. Will this mean more people will go to physical media? Will they kind of like people go away from Netflix and all? Well, any streaming service, not just Netflix or Disney Plus, any of them. Will people kind of stop having the streaming services, having as many? I think it depends on the household and what type of family it is or what type of people it is. I think like families sometimes have like maybe 2 or 3 streaming services. I think maybe the more expensive it gets with the cost of living, I think it's bound to be a case where people will drop out on certain streaming services and keep ones that are more logical for them as a family. Maybe they stick with Amazon because they get like the deliveries or stuff like that. Will people go to physical media? I think people who have been brought up with physical media and for years who have kept physical media will stay with physical media and maybe go less streaming and more into physical media. Like myself, I collected. I'm not like a hardcore collector of physical media. I'm not going to say I am. But I think if it gets more and more expensive, people are maybe be more inclined to say, I'm going to drop out here and just maybe have one streaming service and go for getting some movies, some cheap DVDs or cheap Blu Rays, whatever. So yeah, I think that could be a case. I think it does like streaming. I get it. They've got to raise prices. I don't think it'll ever go out streaming. I think streaming is here forevermore now because there's a generation of people who've been brought up with streaming. Look, I've got young family members who, like my niece, she come here the other day and she opened up the cupboard here with the DVDs and she was like mesmerised by them because she doesn't use DVDs, she uses streaming, and she didn't even know what she thought. She got confused. She thought they were called CDs. She didn't really know. My point is, she's like, 9, 10. That generation and even the generation in like the 20s, really, I kind of have been brought up with streaming. They don't really use DVDs, Blu Rays, 4Ks, whatever. So I think that certain generation will not change into streaming. Kind of like the way my generation and I'm in my 30s, people in the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s have been brought up with physical media and they're always going to have physical media most likely and kind of like maybe adopt streaming, but they'll always be inclined to say, I prefer movies on physical. That's not everyone. Everyone's different because I know people older than me who prefer streaming because it's easier. They prefer it like that and I understand that as well. But yeah, I think for people who have been brought up with physical media, I think they'd be more inclined to say, let's have lesser. But I do think streaming's around for the long term. I don't think it's going anywhere, streaming. I personally use streaming as well. I'm not going to lie. I use like the likes of your Disney Plus, your Netflixes. I watch that as well as watching physical movies. So I like the best of both worlds. But it is off-putting when it goes up the prices. But again, everything goes up. It's a hard one, isn't it? I think it is always down to the individual with whether they're going to get it. But I can't see I can't see streaming dying at any point. I think streaming is here for the long term. And I think these big companies are just going to pump more and more money into streaming over the years. I think we're going to see a change in the way cinema releases even more. I think we're going to get more direct releases in the years to come, even though people don't like it. I think that's going to be the case. I think that's the way it's going to change. I think they're just going to pump more and more money into it. And I think it'll be a case where people just will keep on adopting it and keep on spending money in it. Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, the trailer released recently. I want to give you my thoughts as a Planet of the Apes fan, a fanboy of Planet of the Apes, and what do you call it? What's a fanboy of Planet? I don't know what they call. What do they call Planet of the Apes fans? I don't know. But what do I think of it? First of all, I really did enjoy that trilogy that was released. Now it's in the hands of Disney. They're kind of moving forward with it is following the story of the last war for Planet of the Apes. And yeah, Kingdom tells the story of Caesar's son Cornelius. He's older now. And there's loads of different, looks like from the trailer, there's loads of different kingdoms, different factions of apes on the planet. And it looks really cool. It reminded me a lot of the original movie, the original Planet of the Apes movie with Charlton Heston. You've got like the human survivors and they're kind of like all in the rags and running around. The apes are obviously the main, force on the planet now. And it looks like, to me, that Cornelius is kind of like going to different kingdoms. So maybe there's like a good like gang of apes, a good kingdom, and then there's like evil kingdoms of apes and stuff. And maybe he's trying to unite them all into have one Planet of the Apes. Maybe that's the way they're going for this. But what is interesting, I saw it on like a tease on like Things You Missed or something, and it was like in the Rise of the Planet of the Apes, the first one. Apparently, there's something very briefly where it shows the ship of Charlton Heston's character and saying that it's missing in space. What if at the end of this one, the ship sort of lands and it is, they're kind of like tying it in, maybe they have a character playing Charlton Heston's role and he lands on Planet of the Apes. But I was thinking what would be even cooler, if they tied in Tim Burton's Planet of the Apes kind of and did a bit of a reboot. What if they had Mark Wahlberg's character? That ship returns, and it's Mark Wahlberg's character from the Planet of the Apes Tim Burton movie comes, and he's like part of the franchise for this new trilogy. I would be really up for that, and they could tie in his movie a bit with this, maybe do something like that. I'd be really interested to see something like that. But yeah, I'm really excited for it. I'm looking forward to it. I heard initially that it was meant to be going straight to Disney Plus. That's not correct. I believe that now it is getting a cinema release as well, so it's getting the big treatment because I know this is a big box office franchise, Planet of the Apes. I'm looking forward to it. Planet of the Apes for me is just like up there with Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter. I love Planet of the Apes. I think all the movies, I mean, some of the early ones are a bit dodgy, but the trilogy they just put out was amazing. I like the Tim Burton one as well. I like the original movie, and yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I can't wait to see Kingdom of Planet of the Apes. I think it's going to be really cool. The next topic comes from Ash from Popcorn and Horror. And basically, Ash has put out a topic: is 4K a big enough upgrade from Blu Ray? First of all, I'll say Ash is a cool guy. He's had a great channel on YouTube in the past. I don't think his videos are on at the moment, but he's a really sound guy, Ash, and a great topic here. Great topic to throw into the mix here, Ash. So yeah, is 4K a big enough upgrade from Blu Ray? And he's also got a follow-up as well, Ash, with this. He also said, lots of factors involved. For one, I think you need to have the right equipment to get the most out of 4K. Example, Dolby Vision, OLED 2 will help, I'm sure. I think some films with low budget effects can often look better as on Blu-ray, as 4K can sometimes show too much detail with these. It can even depend on how good your own eyes are too. My eyes aren't the best, so often I struggle to see a real difference in detail. I'm definitely not against 4K, but I'm not sure it's needed for all movies I enjoy. And he's also said the cost to enjoy. The cost of I'm awful at reading. The cost to enjoyment is debatable too. For example, I love the 80s Blob movie. The Blu-ray cost me about £10. The 4K is currently over £30. I'm not sure how much more I will enjoy it in 4K for 3 times the cost. First of all, yeah, great topic, Ash. Thank you very much, buddy. Look, I'm not going to say, disclaimer, I don't currently collect Blu-ray or 4K. I'm still a DVD guy, streaming, but, I've experienced 4K, I've experienced Blu-ray. For me, is going up to Blu-ray and 4K, well, first of all, for me, is there a big difference? I think it depends on the movie. I really do think it depends on the movie, because I know people out there who say, like, this certain movie in 4K is stunning. So I'm not going to say that, it's, to me, I find Blu-ray and 4K, personally for me, I'm like Ash here. I find it really confusing. So I'm like looking at, it's like, do you know when you go it's like when you go to the opticians to get your eye checked, and you get your eyes checked, and they're like, which one looks clearer, this one or this one? And you're looking at it, and it's so, there's a difference there, but it's so subtle. And I find that with Blu-ray and 4K to be so subtle. Maybe that's just my eyes. Maybe my eyes are not like perfect. But if you told me this is 4K, this is Blu-ray, I'd be like, okay, I believe it. I wouldn't know which one's which, if I'm being honest. I think it gets up at a certain point where it just looks stunning, and that's it. And I get there's people out there who can really tell, and they study it a bit more. And I'm just not one of them people, personally. Not to say I won't be in the future, and maybe I will in the future. So I do think it's subtle, but it's kind of like, as well, like video games. Look, the biggest jump in video games was from the SNES, the SNES, the Super Nintendo, the Mega Drive to the PlayStation. And then you go from the PlayStation to the likes of the PlayStation 2, and then you go from the PlayStation 2 to the likes of the PlayStation 3, the Xbox 360. But then furthermore from that, graphics, again, they went up, but it's ever so slightly. And again, it's very subtle changes. Because I think when you get to the 360 era, the PlayStation 3 era, PlayStation 4, then it's like, is there a big jump between the PlayStation 4 and the PlayStation 5 in graphics? I'm sure there's someone out there that'll be like, yes, there is. But for me, it would be so subtle and so minor of an upgrade. So Ash is right as well that, you got to think in the cost as well. 4K is a lot more expensive. You have to buy, and it's not about just buying the 4K discs. A lot of that, you've got to buy a 4Play player. You've got to get a 4K TV. And now you can get bargains, because I know I spoke to my buddy Simon Friday night at the movies. He's on Instagram, Simon, he's been on the channel. And basically he said he picked up a 4K player pretty cheap recently, and he started buying 4Ks. And he has the Short Box Sharks podcast, by the way. Check it out. But yeah, you can definitely get bargains, but it is, there's obviously a big price difference though with Blu Ray to 4K. It's whether you want to buy into all that, you've got to get a TV. To get the best out of 4K, you want to get like an OLED TV probably, or a decent 4K TV. You've got to get a player, and then you get the discs, and the discs are more expensive. You can obviously get bargains, you can get deals, but if you compare them to Blu-rays you can pick up at the charity shops for dirt cheap now. They're like on DVD level, really. So it's a big cost. I personally think if you are hardcore not into your movies, because I don't think it's about being a hardcore movie fan. I think it's hardcore about visual and audio equipment. If you're hardcore into that, it's worth the upgrade if you're really into it all. I think if you're kind of just interested in watching movies and just really just a movie fan, and not to say them other people aren't movie fans, but I think if you're just into your movies, Blu-ray is great. I think it's a great format for people. Like I said, I don't collect it, but I've watched Blu-rays before. You can get good prices on Blu-rays now. Blu-ray players are cheap, and a Blu-ray player is going to work on most TVs people have. They don't have to go out and buy a brand new TV that works for 4K. So I personally think, is it a big enough upgrade 4K? I don't think it is, personally, at the moment in time. Maybe I will be proven on that point in years to come, and I'll be like, you know what, 4K is worth it. But I think personally, for me, looking at technology as a whole, different technologies, video games, visuals, audio equipment, I personally think Blu-ray is great at this moment in time for a lot of people, for the mass audiences out there who watch movies at home. And I think 4K is going to be an option that's more ideal for people and more accessible in the years to come, when it gets more affordable, and when people are just doing that natural transition to 4K TVs and stuff like that. I think still a lot of people don't have 4K TVs. They don't have the high-end 4K players. I think it's still a small niche 4K, really, even though it's been out for years now. I do think it's a niche in the audio visual sort of community, really. I think Blu-rays, DVDs are still massively popular. So yeah, for me, it's not a big enough upgrade at this moment in time for me personally. But great topic from Ash. Thumbs up, buddy. Appreciate the topic. So that's it for this episode of Topics. If you enjoyed this episode, please do give it a like if you're watching on YouTube, and leave a comment below. Maybe leave your views on these topics, and leave some future topics below as well for future episodes of Quick Topics. If you're listening to this on a podcast app of your choice, please do leave a 5-star review and subscribe to the podcast on the app. All your support is greatly appreciated. But yeah, let me know your thoughts on all of this episode's Quick Topics. What do you think on the 4K debate over Blu-ray? Is it a big enough upgrade for you personally? What are you looking forward to with the new Planet of the Apes movie the most? Are you looking forward to seeing a trilogy of movies, maybe a spin-off of some sort? Video game movies, will they be the next big trend in Hollywood? And what do you think? Are streaming services on the decline? I want to say a big thank you again to Phil, to Shaun, to Ash for those topics as well for today's Quick Topics episode. Big thank you to all those guys. Check them out on social media and on YouTube as well. Well, that's it for another episode. Thank you very much for watching, ladies and gents. Remember to spread a bit of movie cheer, and as always, I will see you next time.